They assassinated the Tsar, I think, in 1880. And then by the time they actually properly took over, I think it was around 1910. And so what was going on in Russia at that time was they immediately took over. They started a gulag system, concentration camps, where they were mass drowning Christians in barges. And this information is readily available, and yet you never learn about it.
Ever.
People don't want to talk about it. It makes them very uncomfortable.
Well, I didn't hear about it until I heard you talk about it.
Yeah, 10 weeks ago now.
Because it's not true. It's not true, Jimmy. She's just telling you anti-Semitic conspiracy theories right now, and you're just taking it as fact.
Was talking about the Earth curvature and science, and I said to him, listen, I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a round earther. Actually, what I am...
I'm not a round earther. I was like, round earther? What? You know the thing with Candace Owens and the thing with a lot of right-wingers, and obviously she's going to be spreading a whole bunch of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories with Jimmy Dore here, and Jimmy Dore, oof, does not surprise me whatsoever that his evolution is complete. He's achieved his final form, you know, he is finally completely embraced. Well, he's not saying it out loud. He's still much more useful and much more profitable to continuously say that he is on the left, even though the majority of his criticisms are directed almost exclusively towards Democrats or the pharmaceutical industry. So he's kind of, I guess, like an RFK Jr. liberal kind of a dude in that position right now, but flirting a lot with MAGA, with the right, with the very idea of aligning with, hey, is Donald Trump so bad? I mean, sure, you've heard all of this Project 2025 stuff, but at the end of the day, Joe Brandon is getting the world into a lot of wars, and that's not good. And Donald Trump has said that he's a nationalist, and as a nationalist, he's most likely going to concentrate primarily on himself. And so that's probably a good thing, right?
To me, like, we should also attach the debate with this guy. We don't really talk about Jimmy Dore very much on this program anymore because he's just sort of like some middling reactionary. And we don't really share an...
Wait, to be fair, always was. And you were fine with it before, Sam.
...audience with him anymore. 8 years ago he did. Probably to the date. It was probably right around now. In 2016...
That's pretty wild because, like, so if you're a YouTuber or a content creator, you get to see a lot of, like, analytics. Like, that's one thing I can not shit on YouTube for. They give you just a body of data on your channel, who watches it, what their demographics are, what their genders are, what their age group is, all that kind of stuff. And so they also tell you, people who watch this video also watch these videos, or people who watch this channel also watch these channels. And a lot of the times, it can be very cozy. You're just like, oh, hell yeah. Like, the majority of my audience watches the Majority Report, watches this on Piker, and then you get that warm feeling of like, oh, it's cool. People, like-minded, you know, hosts and entertainers also kind of cultivate like-minded audiences. You get that warm feeling. But then every now and then you'll see something, and I guess for Sam Cedar it was viewers who enjoy this channel also enjoy the Jimmy Dore show. And so for a while, you're like, well, okay, that's because, like, you know, Jimmy, he's maybe a little bit more conspiracy theory driven and, you know, a little bit more extreme. But ultimately, yeah, he wants to hold corporate Democrats as accountable as he would hold, like, corporate Republicans accountable. And that's his vibe. So I guess it's not too bad. But as he went on, and he basically devolved into more and more of a social conservative, you know, going after LGBTQ plus people, now bringing on Candace Owens to talk about how the police were right, in fact, in their procedural murder of George Floyd. But hey, everyone lied to you if you didn't know it. Apparently George Floyd, he wasn't innocent, okay? He did drugs. He even sold drugs. He may have been on drugs. And so, you know, him being strangled to death violently by a police officer was simply a police procedure, and a police officer doing what's supposed to do. That's that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, Jimmy, it's not surprising that you got here because of just how you were going. And I think Jimmy Dore, if anyone, he's kind of got algorithm brain, where he's been watching and seeing what was doing well on his channel. And just like Russell Brand, they caught fire with anti-vax shit, because that opens you up to a massive new audience. Imagine if there was a huge group of people who are very, very hyper online. They spend a lot of time watching videos, and they may not be aligned with the left in any way whatsoever. But one thing they may unite with you on is your really intense criticism of pharmaceuticals and vaccines. And there's nothing wrong with criticizing the pharmaceutical industry, right? Please criticize them. They're fucked. They should be nationalized. I'm very, very critical of the pharmaceutical industry. But to go after just vaccines themselves as a concept, That's where you start getting into, well, of course, it opens up your channel to thousands and thousands of people who consume like thousands and thousands of hours of this stuff. So you make 1 or 2 videos and all of a sudden it's like, whoop, subscriber count, plus 2,000 new subs, plus 3,000 new subs per video. You're like, holy shit. Oh, wow, people really like this. Oh, okay, well, Fauci lied. Maybe there was gain of function. Did anyone think about that? Wet markets. What about engineered in a lab? Hey, lab leak theory. Has anyone talked about this? Wow, this conspiracy involving pharmaceutical companies and maybe even Barack Obama. Why not? People don't like him either. Throw that all out there. And then all of a sudden, the Jimmy Dore show is doing video after video after video on COVID vaccines, COVID vaccines, COVID vaccines, evil vaccines, evil vaccines. And the numbers, they speak for themselves. You know, line goes up. You get a massive new audience. That same conspiracy-laden audience, though, they also, they don't hate the Democrats in the way you might hate the Democrats. They are profound right-wing conspiracy QAnon like nut jobs who now at this point in time have aligned themselves with your channel, and they don't like when you make videos critical of their Lord and Savior Donald Trump. So you start to see less of those videos. You start to see less of that kind of like, oh, well, it was a bad thing that Trump did this. It was a bad thing that Trump did that. No, it's a bad thing that Joe Biden did this. And it's a bad thing that Joe Biden did that. And even the videos that he was doing where he was critical of Joe Biden, say like Joe Biden's handling of Haitian immigrants at the border, even though that is something that he did a video on and criticized, and you would think that like the crowd that hates Joe Biden would also hate that. But they were really mad about that because they actually wanted to see stronger borders, and of course, you know, racist violence enacted upon black people is also something that they're okay with. So all of a sudden watching that video and they're kind of like, all right, well, I'm not too happy with this take, you know, I'm gonna give you some downvotes here, Jimmy.
I watched a video that he did with another guy on his program, Aggressive Progressive, I think it was, and they were talking about how the Supreme Court didn't matter whatsoever. And I'll talk more at the other end of this clip as to what happened after that. But 8 years later, here is Jimmy Dore hosting Candace Owens on his program, talking about how, you know, Israel's a problem, but also sort of Jews.
In their crap. I'm America first. I want to apologize for it. I'm Christianity first. I want to apologize for it. And that upsets some people because I guess, how dare she have the audacity? Well, guess what? I have the audacity, folks.
So you're saying that there was a greater Holocaust of Christians that happened, and it was committed by the Bolsheviks, and the leader of them at the time was a Jewish guy.
Well, Henry Kagoda, what really ran the Gulag camp system. So people should read, if you're interested, Alexander Solzhenitsyn talking about how shocking it was to watch the American president linking arms with Stalin, talking about we're putting an end to the Holocaust in World War II, and Stalin was still mass killing Christians in Russia. I mean, it's an absolute nonsense. And you got to take it back all the way. You know, the Bolshevik Revolution happened. They assassinated the Tsar, I think, in 1880. And then by the time they actually properly took over, I think it was around 1910. And so what was going on in Russia at that time was they immediately took over. They started a gulag system, concentration camps, where they were mass drowning Christians in barges. And this information is readily available, and yet you never learn about it.
Ever.
People don't want to talk about it. It makes them very uncomfortable.
Well, I didn't hear about it until I heard you talk about it.
Yeah, Henry Kagoda.
Because it's not true. It's not true, Jimmy. She's just telling you anti-Semitic conspiracy theories right now, and you're just taking it as fact. Oh, I've never heard this before. No one's ever told me. Incredible. What else do you know? What else have they kept secret from us?
Look him up. It's stunning. I mean, he must have killed alone 15 million people.
Candace,
and this is a person that's not even spoken about. And so that's the reason why Piers just goes, okay, yeah, no, okay, let's move on to the next point. So in my viewpoint, the Israeli government has way too much involvement with the American government, and part of that, this program, and you saw this after October 7th, Congress immediately passed that there would be we would be learning about October 7th in schools.
Hold on for 1 second. Listen. The thing that you have to be careful of here is that there are some complaints that they have about what's going on with our government in terms of Israel that are legitimate, but they are undergirded by a different complaint, and that is that Jews now are responsible for the mass killing of Christians because there was a Jew who was a Bolshevik.
Yeah, and you'll notice Candace Owens went on maternity leave late last year after criticizing Israel a little bit and having the spat with Ben Shapiro. She came back and stopped talking about Israel and started talking about how communist Jewish or Marxist Jews were the real threat here, and has been on this crisis king bit ever since. So she's found a way to pivot away from directly alienating the sort of pro-Israel parts of her audience and just stoking the anti-Semitism.
Well, that's also, yeah, you'll often hear that refrain when anti-Semites are speaking about that kind of stuff in coded language. And like, I mean, I don't know. The fact, it also is a giveaway where she talks about how Israel has too much involvement in our politics, but doesn't talk too much about the slaughter in and of itself, and then all of the faux history that she's engaging in there informs that as well, where she's trying to basically say the Jews are controlling everything, and that's the real problem, as opposed to the foreign policy critique or the critique of the genocide or the settlements or all of that. Colonialism. She can't engage in that at all, because then that's anathema to her politics.
We should say, too, that, like, the history of Jews in relationship to the Bolsheviks are much more complicated than she lays out. Initially, I think the Jewish population in Russia was not fully on board, and then the anti-Bolshevik forces became pretty anti-Semitic.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just like straight up.
Also, her history is just completely like false, right? What did she say? She's talking about how like the Bolshevik Revolution in the 1880s, like it wasn't in the 1880s. First off, it was like 1917, around there. And in addition to that, Stalin's inner circle was not all Jewish people. That's 100% just like a strange anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. This like, to try and associate any single one of any authoritarian's actions distinctly with Jewish people is something that you're only going to see in, like, the dark corners of the anti-Semitic internet, who try to associate every single moment in history. Like, they're still doing it now with current modern day history, by the way. They'll be like, Jared Kushner. Have you thought about that? A lot of Biden's inner circle. Who actually controls the presidency? What? Like, well, you're specifically, and I think with, reason, targeting Jewish people here, right? Trying to associate, oh, well, Jewish people, in this case, happen to be within the inner circle of power. Yeah. So are a lot of Irish people. But there's not an Irish conspiracy going down here, right? Like, every single time something happens in history, like, again, you could start pulling up, well, yeah, there's a lot of investment banks that have Irish CEOs. There's a lot of Irish police officers in the United States. I mean, you could say that they directly control a lot of levers of power there, but no one's asking the Irish question.
Nazi propaganda. This is what Nazis would have said, like, hey, don't look at the Holocaust we did, because actually what we were saying was this is the threat of these Jewish communists that we actually had to react against.
Well, let's hear how Jimmy Dore pushes back on this. He's definitely done his homework for this.
Immediately passed that there would be like we would be learning about October 7th in schools as if it was like Pearl Harbor, right? A day that will live in infamy. Why? This is not my country. That's a nonsense. And if the answer is, because it's a day that should live in infamy, why just Israel? Why just Israel?
Right.
Why not also what's happening in Armenia or happening in Nigeria or happening all over the world? Why not a day that will live in infamy? Russia actually just went through a terror attack, and Russia has a lot of Christians. I'm Christian. So if we can just start drafting over days of terror that happen on the basis of religion.
I don't get the face that he's making, as in, like, this is profound what you're saying. No, it sounds like she's trying to invoke religious war. It sounds like that's what she's trying to do, trying to be like, well, this what really fundamentally when it comes down to is the persecution of Christians by the Jews. And I don't know if you have heard about this, but like Jesus, right? Yeah. Who persecuted Jesus? I thought it was the Romans, but go on. What more do you have to teach me here?
Thing is that she's doing exactly what Netanyahu does, but she's just doing it from the other side. Mm-hmm. She uses Israel and Christian interests as if they are the same thing, just on opposite sides of the coin, and she doesn't like one over the other, as opposed to, so she's just basically saying Israel is Jews, Jews are Israel, which is exactly what Netanyahu does. And that's what people who are Jewish and against what's happening in Gaza, in this country, a significant portion of them, anywhere from last polls, over 50% wanted to condition aid to Israel. Somewhere around 40 some odd percent felt like Israel was doing was a genocide of the Jewish population in this country. And she is conflating these things.
That's massive, by the way. More people should talk about that, because, like, again, the worst people in the world, whether it be like, Christian Zionists, liberal Zionists, or, in the case of Candace Owens, like just straight up anti-Semitic racists who are trying to do an inverse correlation between all these kind of things. every single group on some level is consistently trying to associate the actions of the state of Israel with all Jewish people. And again, hijack for that religion. And in the case of Candace, Owens clearly used it to be able to bolster her own conspiracy theories, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories about how that there's a persecution of Christians that has happened specifically because of them, you know, in that regard. But at the end of the day, if you look at polling, if it is that like nearly 40% of Jewish Americans consider what Israel is doing right now to be a genocide, that needs to be talked about. That needs to be brought up. Like, this is polling and information that, like, you know, a decade ago was not things I ever expected. Like, the majority of Democrats, you know, opposing, you know, supporting Israel now. The majority of Democrats opposing what they consider to be, at minimum, ethnic cleansing. Many of whom are now, you know, confirming that they also believe that this is a genocide. That is in large part due to the amount of horrifying reality that everyone has seen. You can see with your own eyes every single day. There's no self-defense in having just complete parts of the earth bombed out of existence. I mean, there's no argument that can be made there. These are densely populated civilian areas, and there's nothing left. That's not self-defense. That is, again, eradication, extermination is what is taking place there. So that plays a very large role, but also a lot of organizations, including organizations led by Jewish people, Jewish Voices for Peace, for example, if not now org, that are consistently trying to demonstrate, you know, and it's unfortunately Christian nationalists and, you know, anti-Semitic racists like Candace Owens alike, who are united in trying to downplay the voices of Jewish people speaking out against this.
So, you know, that is the tip-off there, that what she's talking about is not a complaint with Israel.
Yeah, I mean, Candace, like, why don't we talk about your complicity in the Spanish Inquisition? I mean, I don't know if we're talking about how this is all about, like, Jews versus Christians as opposed to the conversation around Israel being about empire and power and colonialism, then, like, does she want a history lesson on the Spanish Inquisition?
Well, she can't raise the issue of colonialism. That's not allowed in her lexicon.
Right.
I also say, like, I don't think Stalin needed, like, sort of Jewish people beneath him to do negative things and, like, mass killings and incarcerations.
Let's play just a little bit more, and then I will talk about...
Russia actually just went through a terror attack, and Russia has a lot of Christians. I'm Christian. So if we can just start drafting over days of terror that happen on the basis of our religion, I'd like to draft what just happened in Russia. I want my kids to learn about that in school.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Hey, so you said the thing about concentration camps. I thought the Cecil Rhodes, Boer War concentration camps came first. Am I wrong about that?
Pardon, could you say the last tidbit?
The Boer War in South Africa when Cecil Rhodes, the architect of apartheid that Israel uses.
What year was that?
Like in 1889 or something, I thought.
It could have been. You might be right. I know that. Like, I think the Gulag system was particularly.
You might be right. I don't know. So, anyways, back to the gulags, which apparently were run by Jewish inner circle members of Stalin's regime. Like, I think Matt puts it perfectly there. Like, you can call out what Stalin has or had done. You can call out the gulags. You can call out forced concentration camps and condemn them for what they are very effectively, without having to be a racist about it, right? Or like without having to associate it with a group of people that were not directly associated with that act.
Evil.
Yeah.
So, but you could be right. I wouldn't.
If you read Tragedy and Hope,
point.
you read Tragedy and Hope by Kel Quigley. They have pictures of it. It looks like Auschwitz, and the Rhodes Scholarship is still available to this day. Clinton, I think Obama was one. We still have stuff in that guy's name. That guy invented that stuff. In fact, his little cadre with Wall Street invented the Bolsheviks and the Nazis, which is kind of interesting.
And it's crazy because so many of those sick,
here we go.
demented.
Down the.
I mean, she's said before, and by the way, kept on by the Daily Wire. This was in 2019. If Hitler wanted to make Germany great and just have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is he had dreams outside Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German.
We played that recently.
No, I haven't seen this. So apparently Jimmy Dore rage quit a guest appearance. This was a while ago, right? Yeah, 2022. Rage quit a guest appearance on the Adam and Sitch show.
One of the main piece of evidence that I see cited, that you cited, Dave, that Jimmy cited many months ago, about this claim that the U.S. coup Ukraine was, as you said, the Victoria.
You're really going to debate this? You're going to debate whether fucking the United States could Ukraine? You guys enjoy it. Take care, you guys. This has been fun.
Thanks for coming on, Jimmy.
Take care.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you saying I was funny. I think that I cannot, no matter who it is, if they find me funny, I have a spot for them in my heart. But I'm not going to do this.
Objectively false. You don't care?
I'm not going to do this. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to go black is white, in is out. And if the point of it is this
is an
economic proxy,
you don't even know what I'm going to say about the Newland phone call.
No, what I'm just saying
cares
is
about Newland? I know what
none
you're
of this
gonna say.
matter.
You're
What
wrong.
Kurt is saying is right. It was that it doesn't matter. What's your end point? That we should be helping and spending $100 billion in Ukraine or not? We're there for the same reason we did Libya, for the same reason we did.
Why is Sitch the good guy here? I know it's funny, Jimmy Dore. I mean, he's just he's so lost in the sauce that he's giving the center, the centrists, the win here.
Iraq for the same reason we did Afghanistan and Yemen, and now we're doing Somalia and Ethiopia for the same reasons. That's the same reason we're there. And any discussion about it is just stupid.
Jimmy,
and so I appreciate you, and I thanks for
Is
having
it?
me.
I mean, Jimmy, before
true, because you and everyone else.
It's okay.
Everyone else brings this stuff up in your videos.
It's okay.
And if it didn't matter, you wouldn't bring it up.
It's okay. It's okay. It's good talking. Honest to God, you guys, you could have it out with Dave. Dave, he's doing a great job, and there's no reason for me to get up.
Oh wow.
The ex-fundamentalists who get onto some of these YouTube shows, you can take the kid out of fundamentalism, but sometimes that sort of like I need a worldview. It may be a lunatic one that I get from just around the corner from Alex Jones, but as long as I get a worldview that's going to explain everything to me, then I'm okay. But that show, I mean, the idea that Jimmy Dore is now providing no pushback.
Oh, by the way, yeah, I will let Sam finish, by the way. But if that's one of the clips, I don't know if you heard about the other one. It's the flat earth one.
Just imagine being married to me. I mean, my poor husband, he rolls over. He's like, what are you reading? And I feel like a regular wife says something, I don't know, maybe a love series, Nora Roberts, sweeping her away. Me, on the other.
What? Because, silly women, they're always in their rom-coms reading, they're 50 Shades of Grey, which is just kind of fan fiction for that vampire book. Twilight, that's it. Twilight fan fiction. Women, silly women. Yeah, I don't know. My partner is always reading books on architecture that I can't comprehend, and I'm not sitting there like, oh my, taking a break from the rom-coms, my dear, to learn a little bit tonight. It's kind of like I open it, I'm like, I just, that's very complex, and yeah.
Hand, he rolled over, he asked me, and I said, oh, I'm reading a flat earth theory. And it dawned into an entire conversation. He's like, why are you reading a flat earth theory? And I'm like, because somebody messaged me on Manect about it, and they included some links, and I'm just reading them. I don't know. I'm just an interested person. No matter what, if there's a bunch of people that believe something, I now want to know what it is that they believe. And of course, he pushed me on this, and he was talking about the earth curvature and science. And I said to him, listen, I'm not a flat earther. I'm not a round earther. Actually, what I am.
I'm not a round earther. I was like, round earther? What? It's so wild. So this gets lost in a lot of Eurocentric history, but I believe it was a Muslim scholar in the 11th century. It might have even been the 9th century. Please don't quote me on this. My ears are a little off on this. I believe in the 9th century, Muslim scholars understood the earth to be what they thought was an egg. But in the 11th century, there was a Muslim scholar who was able to measure the circumference of the earth, utilizing, again, the different ways in which light hits the earth at different points, and was capable of doing it with such precision that he was off by a handful of kilometers later on when it actually got revealed that we're actually going to look at the actual circumference of the earth. Incredible what people were able to do around that time. Again, we're talking about the 11th century, being able to accurately, not perfectly, but accurately actually measure the circumference of the earth with the technology and the knowledge that was available in that period in human history. Absolutely fascinating. Fast forward, to thousands and thousands of years later, we now live in a time where we have more access to information than ever before. We have the sum total of human knowledge literally in our pockets at all times. Just pull it out. You can have it in your watch. You can have a little watch, a Dick Tracy style watch, where you push a button and you can be like, what's the actual circumference of the Earth? And it'll tell you down to the fucking, kilometers squared. That's amazing. And yet we do have flat earthers. I like how we got here, but we do have flat earthers is pretty wild, especially because, like, please, if you have a flat earther in your life, and it's really, really hard, I know, to break through to some people who don't want to accept science, and they're like, well, yeah, but I've never actually seen the Earth go around, and when you look at the sky, it just goes straight. Or what about the fact that, like, first off, a couple things will disprove their ideas that the Earth is not in fact flat. Shadows, like just the existence of shadows, and the way that the sunlight hits the Earth and the way the shadow then performs and bounces off the different objects on the surface of the Earth, that would indicate that the Earth itself is not particularly perfectly flat, would be one thing. Planes, if you've ever taken a flight in your life and the plane has taken off and landed, you have benefited from the knowledge that the Earth is in fact round, and you've experienced it firsthand. Now, you might not be able to visually see it once you take off into the sky, and then you look beyond, it might not feel exactly like the Earth is totally round. Also, we now have pictures of it. We can see it. You can see the Earth from things that we have the ability to send into space, to actually get through the stratosphere and that kind of stuff. It's amazing that we've accomplished that can have cameras on them and take pictures of the planet. And so we know that it is a really water-covered, beautiful, sexy as fuck, all right? Earth, you hot, you fine. Orb, that blue orb kind of thing. So that's it. Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the Earth within 1%. Yeah, the Muslim scholar I'm talking about preceded that. It just doesn't get talked about a lot in Western history, because we usually credit, like, most of the accomplishments of the history to Greek philosophers, Roman philosophers. Al-Biruni, that's it. The 11th century Central Asian scholar and polymath. The father of comparative religion and the father of modern geography. Speculation of the shape of the Earth has been an ongoing debate since the dawn of time. Ancient Egyptians saw our planet as a flat piece of land engineered, enlightened by the sun, or the god Ra. By the way, totally makes sense to me. I in terms of deities, I get it. I totally, looking up the warm thing that makes us warm and make plants grow, so allows me to have food, I would be like, that's God right there. That's Ra, yes, God. In Greece, a similar belief was mentioned in the Odyssey by Homer and poet Hesiod, who described Earth as a flat round disk encircled by an ocean. But around 330 BC, Greek philosophers started adopting the idea of a spherical shape. Aristotle brought evidence debunking the idea that the flat Earth, and his belief found its way into the Muslim world, where scholars were convinced that the Earth was everything but flat. In fact, Muslims were amongst the first scholars to recognize Earth's sphericity. Influenced by Greek philosophers, several Arab scholars conducted numerous endeavors to prove this idea. One of these attempts was the work of Persian scholar Abi Rahan Muhammad ibn Ahmad al-Biruni. The Muslim polymath who lived during the beginning of the 11th century was one of the first scholars to estimate the radius and circumference of the Earth. And so here's an actual picture from back then, which is like, this is just so fascinating to me to have, again, these kind of lines that show that during different times of the day, as the sun hits different parts of the Earth and produces shadows, we can tell that this is only made possible if the Earth was in fact both round and then also rotating around the sun in an orbit. According to James S. Aber, al-Biruni regarded the Earth as a sphere and computed its circumference close to modern values. Historical accounts suggest that al-Biruni was in modern day Pakistan when he managed to compute the radius of the Earth. He estimates the radius of the Earth to be about 6,339 kilometers, which gives the Earth's circumference to be about 39,830 kilometers, which is more accurate than Eratosthenes' calculation of 39,690 kilometers. In an article published by, I think he revealed, the estimation of the Muslim scholar was only a few kilometers different from the current radius of the Earth in the 11th fucking century. Like, that's, again, just mind-blowing to me. Sometimes human beings rock. They are so fucking cool, and they can do different things over all different corners of the Earth in different generations and periods of time, and we can come to the same conclusions, which also kind of points towards that these are like observations based on reality, right? That's an absolutely beautiful thing. But then to fast forward thousands of years later, where we're like, I'm not a flat earther, I'm not a round earther, I'm open to different ideas. I'm kind of, let's just say, agnostic on whether or not the Earth is round. Yes, I'm an agnostic earther. But yes, and at that time they believed that the planet was egg-shaped. But still, egg-shaped is better than flat. Egg-shaped makes a lot more sense, right? In theory, the very idea. But yeah, I guess it does kind of make sense that it would be kind of more like an egg. But the fact that it actually has curvature was something that was able to be observed and then replicated later, years later, thousands of years later. Yeah, egg-shaped makes sense based on what they knew at the time. But even that is better than flat. You know,
is I am somebody who has left the cult of science. I have left the mega church of science because what I have.
When were you a part of it? I know Candace Owens for many things. I do not know Candace Owens for, hey, by the way, everybody, let's just have a rational conversation about, is this actually based in reality? Rather than maybe, I don't know, some unscientific fears that we may have. And maybe those are playing into what we're talking about. Can we explore that? It's always been like, no, Christ is king. Christ is king. What do you have to say to that? What do you have to say to accusations that you were defending Adolf Hitler? I say Christ is king. Christ is always king.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We first want to give a shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. This program is produced thanks to the generous support of our Patreon supporters. Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbar Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multi Mondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Poppy, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bomey, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Travis McClinton, and Words Greenwood. As well as every other person you see on the screen right now, this show would not be possible without them. And if you want to join these wonderful people who make this entire program possible, simply go to patreon.com/theserfs and you can unlock uncensored and bonus episodes and, you know, help us exist.